I want to go to daily Mass, but there is no traditional Mass offered daily close to where I live. Should I go to a reverently celebrated Novus Ordo Mass? Well, that's a very good question. I understand your difficulty, but I'm afraid I have to answer no. But I have to explain why. It's simply that the Novus Ordo Mass is not just irreverent, it's obviously that, but the problem with the Novus Ordo Mass is much deeper than that. Even if it's celebrated reverently, or as reverently as possible, there's deeper theological problems with it. And especially, the main problem is that it doesn't express the Catholic theology about what Mass is, essentially, namely a sacrifice. Traditionally, that's what the Church has always taught about the Mass, that it's a renewal on the altar, sacramentally, of the sacrifice of Calvary. And that's what the traditional Mass expresses. You can see it right away. I remember the first time I went to a traditional Mass, that's the first thing that hit me right between the eyes is I'm assisting at the priest doing something. And what he's doing is he's sacrificing our Lord. That's where I learned what a priest was, because that's the essence of a priest, is to offer sacrifice. There's what's called a transcendental relation between the priesthood and sacrifice. That's what a priest is. That's his essence, is to offer sacrifice. And that's what you see in the traditional Mass. It's a sacrifice. You receive communion as well at a Catholic Mass, or you can, but it's in order to unite yourself to the victim that's offered there. Whereas in the Novus Ordo Mass, you can go for 10 years to a Novus Ordo Mass, like I did myself. I was baptized when I was 23 years old, and I didn't even know it was an older Mass. I thought that's just what it was. And I could never understand why people would go to Mass and not receive communion, because that's what I thought Mass was for. It's to receive communion. It's a meal. That's what the new Mass makes you think. And it was only years later, when I was studying in Rome, that I happened to read a book that explained what Mass really was. And then I read some more, and I found out that they had changed the Mass. And then I read some more, and I found exactly what they had done to the Mass. So I would suggest to you to read as well. There's a rather scholarly treatise of this by two cardinals, Cardinal Bacci and Cardinal Ottaviani, that came out at the time that the new Mass was promulgated in 1969, where they show very clearly that the new Mass is not Catholic. And there's also the books of Michael Davies, which were the books that I read at that time, who explains in great detail the problems with the new Mass. It's not simply a matter of the way it's celebrated, even if it's celebrated reverently in Latin even. It's not Catholic. So you can't go to it. It's that simple. It's not going to help your faith. And it's objectively not pleasing to God. It's because it's half Catholic, half Protestant. The whole purpose of a rite in the sacraments is to express the Catholic faith. And the new Mass doesn't express the Catholic faith. So it's a bad rite. That doesn't mean it's necessarily invalid all the time. It probably is quite often for various reasons, but that's not the point. The point is, even if it's valid, it's a bad rite because it doesn't express the Catholic faith. it's not really a Catholic rite. So I think you just have to wait and pray. Hopefully there will be a possibility for you to go to a real Catholic Mass more often, but until then I would counsel you not to go to the new Mass, because it will harm your faith and isn't objectively pleasing to God.